Excellent. So the recording is started. The first thing I want to do is to connect to the data set. See, I'm going to take a middle road. Those of you who have already worked on Power BI, you know this part. You know how to connect to data sets. Especially the first years who have only worked on Excel. For you guys, it will be a little new. I would like to balance it out so that for those of you who are already aware, this is a refresher. And for those of you who are doing it for the first time, I hope you're able to follow with me. Power BI is an independent Microsoft tool. It is not sold as a part of Microsoft Office. The good part is that it is completely free of cost. So you can just go online and download it. And you can download Power BI Desktop. Even though I'm working on a paid account, which allows me to get certain additional features, even with the free version, you will be able to do everything that I'm showing you today. The first thing I want to do is to connect to my Excel file. So we click on Home and Excel. And I already have the file with me. So I'll go to my Downloads folder and select the dataset that I had shared with you. This is very similar to making a pivot table. Like all of you guys, even the first years know how to make a pivot table. So I'm selecting the orders sheet here and I click on Load. So far, so good. And then on the right side, you get a list of all the fields, basically all the columns that were there in the Excel file. All right, now what is the difference between Power BI and Excel? A couple of them. So I'll just quickly outline this for you. So one key difference, everyone, is that Power BI uses different languages. So one language is called DAX, is data analysis expressions. Let me just go to the website. This is one language. It's called DAX. So DAX is used for data modeling, right? It doesn't work only on Power BI. It works on different Microsoft products. So it works on Power BI. It works on SQL Server analysis services. It also works on Power Pivot. So it can be used on Excel as well with an extension. And they all use the same internal engine, which is called the tabular engine. Why is this important? It is super, super important for a very simple reason that if you want to pursue a career in analytics, then you have to work at some point with Excel, Power BI, SQL Server. Maybe Azure and data tools you can ignore, but at least Power BI, Excel, and SQL Server will be very important to you. So the good thing is you're hitting multiple birds with one stone. By learning this language, you're essentially learning something which will help you with multiple platforms. DAX is an ocean. So DAX is very simple to learn, but it's very difficult to master. The good part is that it shares a lot of similarities with Excel. For example, it has a function called, let's say, count, which is also available on Excel. But then it also has a function called countx, which is not available on Excel. It is a functional language. That means that you're using functions to get the result that you want. The difference is that we're using something called expressions. And this is something that I want to focus on. So quick question for you. All of us already have the data set. Let me just remove everything from here. And what we're doing is to make a pivot table. So insert and then pivot table. And I'm going to put my profit and my sales value in values. Okay. What I want is for somebody to tell me, how would you find out the profit margin? Sorry, let's see, keep the market here. Tell me, how will you find out the profit margin? If I want to find the profit margin here in these cells, which I've colored green, how would you do it? You can either put it in the chat window or unmute yourself, however you're comfortable. Anyone?
So it should be the column B divided by C minus B.
Yeah, that's what you would think, right? That we can simply say equal to, and we divide our profit divided by my sales amount. And of course, convert this into a percentage. But here's my question to you. If you do this, then basically you're doing it manually, right? So what will happen tomorrow if you remove the market and you keep something else? Maybe I keep my subcategory. What will happen? The formulas will have to be dragged. Now you will say, okay, what's the big deal? It will just take me a couple of seconds. But this is not how a good model is created. Because the problem is that you want the calculation to happen inside the pivot table. Now, most of you who have been working on pivot tables for a while would argue back and say, but we can't do that. We have always been told that pivot table cannot handle calculations. Like if I want to change a number inside, it will tell me I can't make this change. But that is not correct. So if you notice, what we do here is I have a tab called Power Pivot, right? Where my cursor is highlighted in the top right corner. Everyone? If at all there is a bit of lag in the screen sharing, or if I'm going too fast, just put it on the chat window and I'll pause a little bit, right? So I have a tab called Power Pivot. Now you guys will not have it on your system, but do not worry, it's a free add-in. And how do you enable it? You go to File, then you go to Options, and then, in fact, you don't need to write this down because I have an entire video on YouTube. I'll share the link with you where I've explained every one of these things. Just watch and observe carefully. Then I go to add-ins, and then in add-ins, I have something called COM add-ins, this one. COM is something that Microsoft terms as component object models. So, I mean, let's leave out the technical stuff. Basically, these are additional capabilities that have been given on Excel. Now, you might wonder that if this is such a great feature, why is it not inbuilt by default? For a very simple reason, a normal Excel user will never need to work with Power Pivot. This is only meant for very advanced users. And that's why you guys would probably not have heard of it. So I click on Go, and you notice I have a few things available. I have Power Map, I have Power Pivot, and I have something called Power View. Our map and Power View you can ignore for now. We just want to select this one called Power Pivot. That's it. You just put a tick mark, click on OK, and Power Pivot will automatically get activated. You don't have to install it or anything. Do remember, you need to have a Office version greater than 2013. So 2013, 16, or 19. Now let's see how cool this is. Just watch carefully. The first thing that I want to do is I will do it from the beginning, okay? I'll delete my result. And now when I create a pivot table, please notice the difference. There is an option called add this data to the data model, the last one. So usually we never pay any attention to this, right? We just click on insert pivot and we click on OK. But I want to select this button. What does it do? It enables me to analyze multiple tables, which means that if I want to create a model like SQL where different keys are available in different data sets, I can do that on Excel. I click on OK. Now the pivot table will not be different. It will still be the same pivot table, but there's a small difference. And the difference is that in Power Pivot, now I can create something called measures, this one, in the top left corner. And what is a measure? A measure is nothing but a DAX calculation. So something that we can do on Power BI, we can do on Excel as well, and this is how you do it. So I click on measure, I will click on new measure. So now it is asking me, okay, what is the measure that you want to create? I want to create a profit margin, so I'll select profit margin. Now it is asking me for the calculation. Now the calculation is going to be an aggregation. So just pay attention to the words here. I am not dividing the profit column by the sales column. Why? Because that would be incorrect. For example, if I tell you that, okay, let's go back to the data and I'll make a new column here and I'll simply say equal to profit divided by my sales amount. Now, clearly this is incorrect, right? Because you're not finding a per transaction profit margin. You want to find the profit margin for an aggregation, which means first you will sum up the profit for a particular market, sum up the sales for a particular market, and then you will find the numerator denominator. So that's what we want to do. We will click on measures, new measure, and I'll create something called profit margin. And this would be very simple. This would be the sum of my profit divided by the sum of my sales column. Remember, the functions that we are using here might have some similarity to Excel, but this is a completely different language. Like you will have functions like, look at this one, it's called same period last year. Clearly you don't have this on Excel. You have something called related table, which is not available on Excel, right? So I create this, and when I click on OK, let's see what happened. On the right side, in my pivot table field, an FX button is created. This is a function. And the best part is that this measure is working inside my pivot, which means that if I now keep my sales and also my profit and also my market, what's going to happen is it's going to show me the profit margin directly inside my pivot table like this, right? Of course, this was a very simple example, but I just wanted to show to you that you have this entire list of hundreds of functions available. And this is all a part of Excel, So next time, if you tell somebody that your knowledge of Excel is an advanced level, please don't make that mistake. Unless and until you know DAX, you will not be able to claim that you know advanced Excel. How many people know DAX? Very few. I have taught 15,000 plus participants at EY and PwC. I've had the opportunity of training BCG, Kearney, Strategy, and McKinsey. I have worked with all these firms as a trainer. And believe me, literally not more than 1 out of 200 people has even heard of DAX. Now, you might be surprised and you might say, but how is that possible? How can these guys from elite colleges like yours, from top 50 business schools, not know what it is? See, that's just the nature of Excel, right? Excel is never learned as a structured learning. Like you guys don't learn it from your faculty. And that's the problem, because you don't learn it in a structured manner. You completely miss out on all these capabilities. Power Pivot is not new. It has been around since 2010. It's been there for a decade, right? So don't be under the impression that it's a new feature and that's why you don't know about it. Now, let me do the same thing on Power BI. Now that we understand the basics, how do we do this? I will select my sales, right-click, and I'll create a new measure. Same thing, I will say that my profit margin is equal to the sum of my profit divided by the sum of my sales amount, right? Now, interestingly, when I press enter, there is no result that comes. Only there is a calculator symbol and this profit margin measure has been created. And this is the beauty of Power BI. Power BI calculations are only executed when you're using them in a dashboard. That means that they are lying latent, which means that the system is not using or expending the bandwidth to unnecessarily do calculations even when you're not using them. Think about it. In Excel, when you create a financial model and you have 50 sheets with you, every time you open that Excel file, you know what happens? Every one of those calculations is being recalculated. And it's so irritating, isn't it? That's why Excel crashes. In Power BI, the difference is that this measure is lying low. It is waiting for the moment you will use it. For example, if I make a bar chart and I put my market here and I put my profit margin here, you will notice that. Let me just convert this into a percentage and also add the data label. Right? So you notice that we get the different results here. When is the calculation coming live? Only when you're using it as a part of something like this. Now, this was, of course, a very simple calculation that I showed you. I want to do something more here. So one question was on Pareto chart, right? And I want to, and I think most of you got it, and I think you guys did a great job. But I want to quickly do it on Excel and then show you on Power BI. Interestingly, creating a Pareto on Power BI is 10 times more difficult, but it is definitely worth the effort. So because you guys know how to do it, I will not spend a lot of time on this. We keep subcategory, we'll remove the market. We will keep our sales amount. The first thing is we will sort in a descending order. Let me also remove all the decimal places. We don't need this. After that, we put sales one more time. On the second column, we can do show values as percentage of running total, right? And very simple. Now we create a chart. Alt F1 is a shortcut to create a chart. We go to chart design, change chart type. We go to combo, and then we put our sales on the secondary axis like this. Once you have done this, and let me also sort the data back, you get a Pareto chart like this. It's a classic operations supply chain visual. I've seen a lot of marketing companies also work with it. In the last month and a half, I worked with GSK, Britannia, Kimberly-Clark, and ITC. And if you're doing anything, you want to create market basket, you want to look at a product portfolio, you want to understand which products to divest, a new product development. Of course, this is very, very important because it helps you understand which product categories are contributing the bulk of your sale. Now that you've seen it, I want to show you some real data from Britannia so that you're able to relate it better. Right? I will not be able to share this file with you, unfortunately, but I will at least show you the example. So PowerPoint, and let's see. Right, so not this one, it's the other one. So I have a very close friend who works in Britannia, and we were just doing some work with him. So basically, this is a Britannia dataset, not a very large dataset, about 18,000 rows. And this is for national modern trade retail. So if you notice, the chains are cash and carry, national retail is standalone. And then the accounts are Reliance, DMart, Food Bazaar, so on and so forth. And then, of course, you have different types of sub-brands. You have the description. Then you have the data for a year. Then you have 1920. Then you have the tonnage, because we always measure, products as tonnage. Then we have lakhs. And then we have CAM is the key account manager. So the guy who's handling this. Then the number of packets sold, the type of packet, and the region. The region is Andhra Pradesh. Let's make a pivot table. The data is already very clean. And you will notice something very interesting. So if I put my sub-brand in my rows, I can see all the sub-brands here. And if I put my, let me in fact put my category, that would be better. And I put the, let's say the lakhs in values, you will notice that I can just sort the data. So sort largest to smallest, put my lakhs one more time. And I don't think we need to do this, but all of you would agree with me that the bulk of sale would be coming from biscuits, right? So if you notice, 81% sales are coming from biscuits, and then there is an incremental addition. So 8% is coming from rusk, another 6% is coming from cake, and then so on and so forth. But what if I want to validate whether this is the same across all the regions or not? So what I can do is, after making a chart, just a second. So I'll make a chart quickly. So let's go to design, change chart type, and select a combo. Okay, watch this. This is very interesting. What I want to do here is, I want to create a slicer, which is on pivot table. You have an option called insert slicer, which is nothing but a filter, right? Very simple to work with. And here I can put my accounts. And now you will get a very different perspective, because if you look at, let's say, so by the way, Trinitra was a chain in South, which was purchased by the Aditya Birla Group. So it's a part of more now. So do you see how it shifts from account to account? And that is exactly what businesses are interested in finding out. For example, I mean, again, I'm not getting too much into the details here, but you will get a perspective of how different chains are, right? Okay. Now, while we're on this, I also want to do one more example for you. Just give me a moment. The problem is that we only have the sub-brand, right? We don't have the brands with us. The brands have been written in a different Excel file, which is like this. This is the mapping of my brand and my sub-brand, correct? Watch this. So I'm going to do this from scratch and pay attention. First, I'll close both these files. I'll open a new Excel file right in front of you. I will click on Power Pivot. And in Power Pivot, I want to load a data set. So we click on Manage. And here I can connect to different types of data sets. So I can connect to ODCs, which are object data feeds. I can connect to SQL Server, Access databases. I can even connect to other sources. So I can connect to SAP, I can connect to HANA, I can connect to Azure. Interestingly, Excel is a very last option, because Excel is the least used in Power Pivot. So what did I do so far? I clicked on Power Pivot. I went to Excel. I'll click on Next. I will quickly browse, and I'm just going to select my folder path from here. And I will select my prob. Prob is the complete sales data. My first two are the column headers, so I'll just click on this option and click on Next and Finish. And it says I have to first select something, so let me select the sheet. 18,072 rows have been transferred, and I close it. So far, nothing very complicated, no rocket science. But now I'll do something interesting. I'll again click on From Other Sources, and I'll click on Excel, and I will select the brand and sub-brand, and same thing, use the first two as headers, click on Next and click on Finish and Close. Now, if I ask you that, oh, the brand is mentioned in one file and the data is in another file, usually what will you guys do? You will do a VLOOKUP, correct? Because obviously you have to first combine everything into one single file. But I don't want to do that. I will click on Diagram View, and very cool, I have my fact table, which is my entire sales data here. This is my mapping. I can just select my sub-brand and I can drag it and put it on sub-brand. And you know what I've done right now? This is a relation. Most of you guys, engineers, right? You would know this. It's a one-to-many relationship. But it's nice to know that these things are possible on Excel. Like, I mean, otherwise, we spend half our time writing VLOOKUPs, handling errors. You don't have to do that. And these two data sets are not even coming from one place. They're coming from different files. So imagine how cool it is. You might have 5 Excels, something coming from SQL, something coming from a CSV file, something coming from the internet, and all of it can be combined into a singular model like this. And now when I make a pivot table, here's the best part. You will not get two pivot tables, you will only get one pivot table. So I click on pivot table, and let me put it on a new worksheet. Do you see this? I have this, which is this orange symbol is the fact that it's an external data set. This is my sales data. And in this one, you notice this is brand and sub-brand. And here's the best part. From one Excel, I can select the brand. From the other Excel, I can select my sales, which is lakhs, and the result will come. Despite the fact that no place have I actually done a VLOOKUP and combined all the data sets. It's actually reading the data and combining it real time from different Excel files. Right? Power BI uses the exact same model. So whatever I've shown you right now, it looks the same, it works the same, the formulas are the same, the limitations are the same. Of course, Power BI will probably have a few more additions, but fundamentally the model remains the same. Okay, good. So this is something I wanted to cover for you. This is how you go to Power Pivot and you create a measure, right? All right. But now I want to show you how do you create a Pareto chart on Power BI. This is, like I said, it's tougher than it seems. But let's take it up as a challenge and then work on this. The first thing that I want to do is I will create a table. So we select our matrix. And in our matrix, we will have nothing special. We just keep a subcategory in our rows, and we will keep the sales value in my values. And we get this, right? If I want, I can also sort the data, and let me also increase the font size so that you can see this properly. So let me change the font size to, let's say 16 should be okay. Perfect. But there is a small problem. The problem is I don't want to use the sales field because there is a difference between what we call an explicit and an implicit measure. Again, I'm just giving you the keywords. You guys can read it on your own. So we have implicit versus explicit measure, right? So you have to understand how these work. It's very well explained. You can just go to the official Microsoft website and understand it. Basically, an implicit measure is coupled with the field on which it is based. That means in my Excel pivot, when we get this total 12642502, how is it coming? It is not coming because I calculated it. It is coming because I created a pivot table. The moment I remove this, the number will go away, or rather the number will not go away. But anyway, look at these numbers, right? And that is what is interesting. I don't want to do this. I want to create what we call an explicit measure, which is this. So it is something that we have created. And how do you do this? By using a measure, right? A DAX measure. So I will simply right click on sales and I will click on new measure, and I will write that my, let's just call this HM, so that we know that all of these are starting with HM, and we will call this total sales. Just a moment. Equal to sum of sales amount. Now I know what you guys are thinking. You might wonder, but what is the point? If I keep this in values, then you notice you're getting the same result. Both of them are the same because this is sales which is coming directly from the original data set. This is the measure that we have created. But remember, the difference here is that I have better control over the second one because I have created it. The first one is something that has been automatically created. So I don't need this, so I'll just cancel this right now. Now I want to create a rank. So once I've sorted the data, a rank is very simple. All we have to do is we will right click. You can right click anywhere you want, and you click on new measure. And let's call this HM. And this will be my Pareto rank, right? Now, when you write rank, you notice that we don't have a rank function on Power BI. We have something called a rank X. Fundamentally the same thing, and it's very simple. What does it say? It ranks the expression evaluated in the current context in the list of values. This is the important part. The question is, what is my list of values? My 17 subcategories. But where is that list? I have to provide that inside my function. So what are the arguments? It says table, expression, value, order, ties, right? Value, order, and ties are optional arguments. That's why they're in a square bracket. Table and expression are mandatory. So what is a table? My table is only the 17 subcategories. And how do I know how many subcategories I have? I will say all. What is all doing? All says that it will return all the rows in a table or all the values in a column, ignoring everything else. That means when I write all subcategory, what is it doing? It is basically only showing me a unique list of 70 subcategories. It's not showing me 50,000 records. It's just showing me a list of 17 unique subcategories. And then what is the expression? There are two ways. I can either write sum of sales, right? But why do you need to do this? In any case, you have created the measure called total sales. So I can actually just write total sales, right? Remember, this will not give you a result. Like any other measure, it will work, but only when you put it inside your table, you will notice that you get these ranks like this. Good, so we're getting somewhere. The next thing I want to do is I want to find the running total. Now again, running total is a little difficult, but let's take it up as a challenge and do this. I'll again create a new measure. And this time we will say that HM, Pareto, and running total is equal to, and now we use one of the most powerful functions in Power BI, which is called calculate. Calculate basically says that I'm doing a calculation, but I'm doing a calculation which is modified by filters. That means if I say, show me the sum of sales, and then I keep a filter saying, no, only show me the sale for France, then it will only show me the sales for France. So if you notice, there are a couple of arguments. We have expression, and you can add as many filters as you want, like this, right? So what is my expression right now? My expression obviously is my sales value, which is my total sales. This is simple. Now it is saying, what is the filter? Now my filter is going to be, just try to understand. The number for phones will be the same number, 1706824, correct? 17 lakh. The second one will be 17 lakh plus 15 lakh, which is 32 lakh. The third one will be 17 plus 15 plus 15, which means that for the first one, I'm only looking at the first rank. For the second one, I'm looking at rank number 1 and 2. For the third one, I'm looking at rank number 1, 2, and 3, and so on and so forth. When I reach the final value, I look at the top 17 ranks. So we're using a top n function, which means that I'm looking at the given number of top rows. And then top n, what am I using? I'm using these numbers that I've created. This one, which is Pareto rank. After this, my second filter is what I've already shown you earlier. So we're using all. We are writing our subcategory. And then we are also, just a minute, we are also writing our sales value, which is total sales, right? Let me just quickly check this. If everything is correct, this parenthesis should not be there. Perfect. I think everything looks great. Let me explain how this is working once I've shown you what the result looks like. So when I keep my Pareto rank here, you will notice that we are getting a running total. Do you see this? 17 plus 15 is 32, 32 plus 15 is 47. How did we do this on Excel? It was very simple. All I did was, remember, right click, show value as percentage of running total, which is interesting because in Power BI, it is so difficult. Right now, we don't even have the running total. We only have the total. Now we have to calculate the running total as a percentage, right? So that one final step which is required is, let me just increase the size. Now we'll create a final measure, which is HM, and this is my Pareto percentage. And this would be equal to divide. Divide is basically numerator divided by denominator, that's all, right? And we are using our running total. And what are we keeping in the denominator? We are using a calculate function to find my sales value. And what is the filter? The filter is all my subcategory. Right? I do not expect you to understand it 100% the first time, but even if you've understood maybe 20, 30%, I'm happy with that, right? Because DAX takes a lot of practice to understand. But basically, let me just convert this into a percentage. What we have managed to do here is 13.5, 25.44, 37.32. The same thing that we were getting here as well, we have managed to recreate the same thing on Power BI, right? And of course, now you can create a chart if you want to. So I can just make a line and column chart, this one. And in the line and column chart, I can keep, let's see what we want. So we want to keep subcategory in shared axis. My Pareto percentage will come in my line value, and my total sales will come in my column series. And I notice we have, why are we not able to do this? Just give me a moment. Just a second. I don't know, everything looks okay. Let me just try once again. So if I convert this into a line and column, yeah, it's working now. Anyway, there must have been some error earlier. So let me click on Pareto and put it in line value. And you notice we get our Pareto chart. Now, how do you show a 80% line? Very simple. You can just create a new measure. And you can just call the measure as my 80% line. And this will be equal to 0.8 or 80%, right? And because this is a measure that you've created, now I can put it in my line value and you will get a line like this. But again, coming back to the question, why is it so important? Because in Excel, you're limited by Excel's capability. You can't do other things with it. But on Power BI, I can do wonderful dashboards. For example, I can, let's say, put a country and a sales, and I can put it as a map. So I can see all the countries in the world here. And if I click on United States, my map and my Pareto are interlinked with each other, right? And that is what makes Power BI much more powerful. So I can just select, let's say, a region like this. So let's say West Africa. And if I select only these particular countries in West Africa, it should show me the data only for that particular set of countries like this. So I agree. Excel is much simpler. It's much faster when you want to create a simple Pareto. But if you want it to become more dynamic, then doing it on Power BI makes much more sense, right? I'll just pause for 1 minute. Any questions that you have? Just take a moment and think about it if there's anything you would like to ask. See, I'm not going to repeat the same thing for every example because by now I hope you have understood the amount of effort that Power BI takes. Simple visuals are very easy, but it's the complicated ones that takes effort. Yeah.
Good evening, Havish. I'm Vishakha Gupta from batch of 22.
Yep.
So I want to ask, in this Pareto, there should be an increasing curve now because we are just adding like percentage. So why it is dipping down for any region if we select it?
For a region?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll have to check. Wait. So let's see what numbers are coming. That will give us an idea. So let's keep. No. Select this and put a data label. This is working okay. And when I select only one country, I think it is going to give me 1478. I'll have to check. I mean, there must be some logic at the back end as to why the map is not connected to this. We'll have to check that. I can't think anything off the top of my mind.
Sure.
Probably, what is happening is that in this, because we have kept all, it is looking at all the countries, right? So something on the lines of that. I'll have to think about it. But good observation. But I'm sure that's something we can figure out. Okay, let's do one more example. Seasonality, again, is something where there is no one clear answer. There are different ways of looking at it.
Good evening, Mr. Havish. I think there are some questions in the chat box.
Sure, I'll check. All right. So, oh no, the GM and HM is is nothing. I'm sorry. I should not have labeled it like this. HM is just something that I like to write as my initials. That's all. So that I know that these are measures that I've created. That's all. There's no convention or anything. You can write whatever you want to write. Okay. Data sorting can be a problem. Aditya, could you explain what do you refer to by data sorting here? Oh, for the Pareto I created. You know what? Let's not get into this right now. Like I said, you guys can now go back and explore this on your own. I want to show you something very cool. We want to create a line chart with seasonality in it, right? Now, there's a bit of a problem. I have an option called New Quick Measures. Now, this is where Microsoft is very smart. Microsoft understands that a lot of beginners might, not feel comfortable writing DAX queries. As you can see, they're not really very simple. It takes quite a lot of relearning. So they have said that we have combined, as in Microsoft has combined, some very commonly used functions. And you notice they've created these business cases. So you notice we have average per category, filtered values, sales from new customers, month to date, YTD, rolling average, so on and so forth, right? But I cannot select the time intelligence functions right now because I do not have something called a date table. That means that if I look at my Excel file, you will notice that if I sort the data chronologically, we have the first and we have the second and we have the third. And if I keep on scrolling down, there is a possibility that some dates are missing from here, correct? It's not necessary that a sale has happened on every date. And that will create a lot of problem when you do time intelligence functions. That is why we always say that the first thing that you should do in Power BI before you start working is to create something called a date table. It is advisable to do this even on Tableau or whether you're working on Qlik, any model that you're working on. It is always recommended to create a chronological date table, which is nothing. It's just a series of days from the oldest date to the newest date. How do we do this? Now, of course, you can do it manually, but I want to do it on Power BI directly. So we click on this button called the data view on the left side. So this is my report view. This is my model view. This is my data view. This is already a table I have. I want to create a new table. For the new table also, I'll be using a DAX expression. And we use a very simple expression. So I'll say that my date table is equal to, so there are a couple of ways of doing this. If I say calendar auto, what will happen? Power BI will automatically detect which is the oldest and the newest date in my data set, and it will create this for me. So from the 1st of January 2012, and if I saw this in descending, it will give me the 31st of December 2015. But we should not use it. Can anybody tell me why? Why should we not use calendar auto? Just think.
So is it because it is not mentioning the time?
No, the time is not there because I don't have a timestamp with me. So let me just change it back to a date. That's okay. It is not a good habit, everyone, because what will happen is, imagine when you're working on Excel, you have two columns. You have an order date and you have a ship date and you have a return date. What will it do? It will search in all the three columns for the oldest date and search in all the three columns for the latest date, which is not a good thing. Usually when you create a model, you only want to look at one specific column, right? Like if you want to create a date table for order and ship and return separately, you will create 3 date tables. So what do we do here? We will not use calendar auto. I'll do a manual calendar, which means what is the range of my data from the 1st of January 2012 till the 31st of December 2015. So I'll just simply say, I want to create a date. In fact, we should start at 8th of January and the end date will be, I'll create another date, which is the 2015, 12 and 31 like this. Right. Now, this is better because I'm choosing the start and the end value. But then again, there's a problem. The problem is that this is not dynamic. Tomorrow, when more records get appended, obviously you will have to come back here and change it to 2016. And I mean, why would you want to do that extra hassle? So we will do the smartest thing, which is we will use a calendar, but we'll instruct Power BI to find out the minimum from the column that we want, which in our case is my date column, right? Remember, right now we only have one date column, but it is possible that we have multiple date columns as well. Similarly, we say maximum of my date column, and we will again select our date column like this, right? So basically, we have controlled the column from which it will find it, and we have also managed to explicitly define and make it dynamic, basically, right? Like this. Excellent. Now we have done this. There's a bit of a problem. The problem is now we have 2 tables here, right? If you look at the original data set, you will notice that there is a calendar icon on order date, this one on the right side. Notice a small icon. But now that I already have a proper date table, I don't need this one. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? So what do? I will connect my order date to my date. And as you can see, this is the same way I did it on Power Pivot as well. But the moment you do this, your original date will not become a date anymore. So if you notice, the calendar icon has gone away. because now your date table is the only date that you can use for your calculations. And now we can do whatever we want to do. For example, let's say you want to look at the you want to look at the rolling average, right? Now, do remember the function is going to look a little difficult, but the good part is you don't have to write it. You can just go to quick measure. And in quick measure, I can select my rolling average. Now it is, it's like a baby. It's asking you, okay, you drag and drop what you want. So what is my base value? My base value is my sales value. So I'll select my sales. I can just drag it here. What is the date? Date is my date table that I created. Then it is asking me, how do you want to find out the rolling average? So I want to look at a month, and I want to look at 1 month before and 1 month after. All of you understand rolling averages, right? It's like for the month of February, my average would be the average of the previous month, January, and the next month, March. This is considered to be a more normalized data and a better representation when you're doing forecasting. Because if you're explicitly looking at every month, then there is always a risk that there might be some outliers in your data. This normalizes the data a little better. And when I click on OK, you will see that a measure has been created called sales rolling average. But this is quite complicated, okay? So let's understand what it is doing. I'll just give you a very high-level overview. Let me just see, I think that some people are trying to join in. I'll just admit them. Okay, so if you notice, what it is doing is, it is, ignore the first 3 lines for now, okay? We'll come back to that later. It is first creating 2 variables. So last date is a variable and date period is a variable. What is the last date? Very simple. It is the end of month. You all know what the end of month is. Then it is also using a date period, which is again a variable name. And this is where I'm calculating the dates between. So if you look at the explanation, it tells you dates between is nothing. It's the number of dates between 2 given dates. So the dates, start date and end date. So what are my dates? That is my date table dot date. And what is the start and the end? It is the start of month and the end of month. These are the powerful functions that you have in Power BI, which is not available on Excel. This is the calculation that I'm doing, right? So this is the variable, these 2, okay? This is the calculation. And then I'm returning, using the variable, the final result, which is my average X function, right? Again, I will not get into detail right now. You can just watch a video and see this, but basically, this is what you have to learn if you want to use Power BI a little better than, just creating dashboards and all. But let's see the final result, and I'm sure you will appreciate the result that comes in. So what we want to do here is I'll create a matrix. In this, we will keep our, let's see what all we want. I'll keep my date, but we don't want to see year, quarter, month, and day. I just want to see my year and month, right? And let me expand this. And I also want to keep my sales amount here. And I also want to keep my sales rolling average. So I hope, let me just increase the size, guys. So I hope all of you can understand this. Basically, if you look at this number, 114 for April and 135 for March. So if I look at these 3 numbers, what is the average of these 3 numbers? 136, right? So it's telling me that the rolling average for April is basically the average of the same month, the previous month, and the next month. Similarly, if you want to normalize the data even better, for businesses that have very non-regular seasonality factors, what you can end up doing is you can do a 3-month rolling average, or maybe even a 6-month rolling average. That, of course, depends on the business context, what type of industry and all you're working with. But once you've done this, you can create a beautiful visualization. Now I can create a line chart. And in the line chart, we can keep my sales rolling average in my values. We will keep the date in my legend, and we will keep the axis as my month, right? So what is it showing you right now? It is showing you a comparison of the seasonality, right? Because you have seen the different months for 4 different years. So 4 different years are 4 different colors, and you are now able to basically look at a rolling average. The calculation could have been anything that you wanted. The beauty of Power BI is that you can use additional visualizations. For example, I can go to these 3 dots and get more visuals. And there are over 200 visualizations available here. So I'll just select something called a donut chart, right? It's called the drill down donut chart. This one, advanced donut visual. And how does it work? It's like a pie chart, but the difference is that this has levels in it. So in my value, I'll keep my sales value. And in my category, we will keep two things. So I'll keep my category, and below that, we will keep our subcategory. Now, I know what you're thinking. You will say, but it just looks like a pie chart. What is cool here is that you can actually click on these. So if I click on technology, it will show me the 4 subcategories within technology like this, right? And that is what makes it dynamic. So theoretically, you can even keep one more level. So 3 levels are permitted. So I can see APAC, United States, Canada, Europe, LATAM, and Africa. And I can click on a category and see the subcategory. And obviously, all of these things are interconnected with the rolling averages that you have created, right? And since we are about to complete an hour and there are a few other things I want to show you, I'll just speed up a little bit. This is something nobody did, and I'm a little surprised, but I'll show it to you. All of you can learn from this. Right now, you notice that it's showing me the rolling average, which is great, but it is not telling me who are my top 5 customers, okay? So I'll create a new page, and then on the format, we will change the page size to what we call a tooltip, right? So on page size, I made it a tooltip, and on page information, I will turn the tooltip on. Why have I done this? Now my page number 6 can be accessed by page number 5. Let me show you how we do this. When I go to format, I can go to tooltip and say that this visualization, only this visual should be connected to page number 6. So what will happen? When I take my mouse, do you see what is happening? It is actually showing me a preview of page number 6 right now, which is very cool. It's like a hyperlink, right? Obviously, we don't have anything on page number 6. So now I can come here. I can make anything. Let's say a bar chart where I'll keep my customer name. I'll keep my sales value. And we'll also put our data label. And what else can we do? Let me just change the color in the background. I'm just choosing a color at random. No reason for choosing a pink. And basically, I want to not show all the customers. I just want to show the top 5. So we can go to filter. I can select customer name, top N. And I just want to show my top 5 customer as per sales value like this. So basically, I filter the data, and it is only showing me the top 5 customers by the sales value. And the best part is that now when you go back, just see how cool this is. Let me hide everything. This is how you will analyze the data. You click on APAC, you click on technology, then click on phones, which is your largest selling subcategory. Now you can see that seasonality and the rolling average for different years. So you can see that in 2014, there was quite a spike that happened in the middle of the year, and then it dropped sharply. On the other hand, 2015 has grown sort of normally, right? And if I want to see who are the top 5 customers, I can just take my mouse and it will show me who the top 5 customers were for that particular month in that particular year, like this, right? So if you notice, this is dynamic. So where I take my mouse, it will dynamically filter the data for me, right? Any questions? By the way, this can be done on Tableau as well. So it's not something unique to Power BI. And Tableau also does this very well. I mean, it's a beautiful tool, right? Because it gives you the ability of creating more granular, detailed analysis. Let me just check the chat window. Any questions, anyone? Right? See, in terms of customer loyalty, I'm not going to show you the solution because I think some of you guys have done a fantastic job. And you guys use RFM, which is absolutely the correct model to use. But do remember, RFM is not the only model, right? There are lots of other models as well. Like if you go to Power BI and you say loyal customer, you will notice that this is not a... See, the reason I gave you this question is because I wanted you guys to do research, not just use RFM. RFM is great, by the way, I love it. But as you can see, there are lots of other things that you can find out. You can do customer churn, new customer, old customer, lost customer, right? So my only submission to you guys is don't be happy with only RFM. You know, there are lots of other things that you can do. And as you can see, lots of people have solved these things. Let me just share a website with you. This is called Radacat, right? And you can just search for lost customers. These are very advanced topics. Like this is so advanced that even I don't do all these things. Like I only do bits and pieces, right? The guy Reza Rad who runs this website, he's one of the leading Power BI developers in the world, right? So if you notice here, fundamentally, you know what we have done. We have to first create a model, then we have to do some DAX measures. And he has explained everything beautifully. But as you can see, this is quite a lot of effort that he has put in, right? But definitely something you guys should have a look at. The website is Radacad, R-A-D-A-C-A-D. I want to show you how you could have done this on Excel as well. Very simple, but a very nice example. Customer name, I'll have my sales amount, and I'll keep my order date in my column, and I'll only look at my years, right? I'm going to show you guys a very different formula, something you guys would never have seen earlier, and I hope you will learn something from it. These are the sort of things that I teach at PwC EY, okay? Please watch. We know that the change is the current year minus the base year divided by the base year, right? Which is basically 6932 minus, sorry, it will be equal to 6932 minus 958 divided by B7. Everybody knows this, right? That this is how you calculate the change that happens. Current minus base divided by base. What I want to show you is something very cool. Please watch. Equal to, I'm going to select 3 cells at the same time, all right? Minus the 3 adjoining cells. So 13, 14, 15 will be the base value. And what are you subtracting? 12, 13, 14, right? So the previous year. And then what are you dividing it by? You're dividing it by, obviously, the previous year, like this. So I basically reduced multiple calculations into a single calculation. And what will be the result? 3 numbers, right? Let me convert this into a percentage. So as you can see, first year, there was obviously a growth of, let me close this. We don't need this right now. There was a growth of 624%, 6.24 times. Then there was a growth of 46%, which is 1.46. And then finally, you had a negative growth of, a degrowth of minus 35, correct? Now, as a business, usually we want to find how many of these customers, like I can obviously drag it down and it will show me the result for all these customers, right? And let me also make this a percentage. My question is, how many of these values are greater than 100? So just think about it. Just give me a moment. Okay. So what we want to do here is, I will say, this is okay. Now I'll say that if you know the conditional statement, so I'll say that if this entire result is coming as greater than 1, which is basically greater than 100%, then I want to show 1, which means yes. Otherwise, I want to show, or let's just say I want to show yes, which means that yes, the growth YOY was greater than 100%, or I want to say a blank. So what will happen? Wherever the number was greater than 100, it will become yes, otherwise it will become a blank like this. So if you notice, it is now telling me a series of values like this. And now what do? I want to count that for every customer, how many years has he shown more than 100% growth? So now I can say sum, and I can simply say the sum of all these values, and it will tell me, just a second. So we can just do a count, right? So we can just say count if, and we can just count this yes that we have created. Just a moment. So this is okay. Why is it not working? Just give me a moment. Equal to count if. All right. And then we have this, and the criteria is yes. Seems to be okay. I don't know. I might be making some silly mistake, but that's okay. You guys can, or you know what? Let me do it like this. Let me change the yes to 1 so that, sorry, so that you're going to get a, basically, wherever there's a growth, we are showing 1, otherwise we're showing 0, right? Like this. Convert it back to a number. And now that we have these numbers, we can simply do a sum, and I think that should work. Yeah. So what is it telling you? It is now telling you, out of the 3 possible YOY, how many years has there been a growth of more than 100%? So now I can finally say if the value is greater than equal to 2, then I want to say yes. Otherwise, you want to show a blank. So what will happen? Now it will tell me that this is the only customer who has had at least 2 years with a positive growth of over 100%. This is just an example. See, why is it 100%? There's no reason. I'm just giving you an example. You could have done this with a MOM as well, with a YOY as well. I just wanted to show you how models are created. You know, how we reduce the number of functions required and we basically reduce it into a single formula. That was the objective of showing this to you. Not to say that this is something used commonly. I just wanted to show you how I write formulas like this, right? And what else? Yeah, let me just quickly show you on Tableau what you could have done. So I'm going to connect to my Excel file and okay, some of you might not have worked on Tableau, which is okay. There's a question, let me answer that. Hi, is there any way we can put these dynamic charts in our decks in PPT? No, you can't. Usually what we do is that once you prepare a Power BI report, you can just put it on your website like this. Let me show you. So let me show you a client project, anyone. Okay. So basically this becomes your dashboard, which is interactive, and you can just go to view and go to full screen. So basically this acts like your PowerPoint now, right? That's the idea. Like, you're not supposed to take it to PowerPoint because that defeats the purpose of doing it on Power BI, right? And like, this is all real data for clients. This is headcount for the entire country. This is how you do different things. Basically, you make the report. Once you have created the Power BI report, let me just open it. Then you publish it. You put it on the Power BI service. Like you have Tableau online, you have Power BI service. You can do this free of cost. You don't have to get a paid account for this. And from there, you can put it on your online service. The only catch is that you will not be able to share your reports with the free version of Power BI. So like I have the pro account, so I'm allowed to share it with other people with a link like this. But with the free version, you're not allowed to share your reports with other people. But you can always send them the Power BI file. Like you can just attach it on an email and send it. There is no restriction on that, right? And once you have done this, you can even have these interactive dashboards put on your website or any website that you have, like even a WordPress document. Like what I've done here is that on my website, I basically put these interactive dashboards. And of course, nobody can see the base data, but you can fully interact with all of these. Like this is an HR data set. This is another HR data set. Then I was doing some government work recently for BJP. So we were looking at the last national election. We want to see the win-loss percentage and the assets. And believe me, guys, this number is not fake. This is the real number. In 2014 national election, the total wealth of the electoral candidates was 266 billion. Just crazy, right? The top 50 people had a wealth. I mean, like in Andhra and all the top guys have like 3,000, 4,000 crores with them, right? And this is all official data from the data.gov website. Then you have some single dashboards like this. Again, you have the tooltips, so I can see region-wise analysis. In finance, of course, you can do much more. Like you can have these animations and all. You can have these moving scatter charts. Then you can create something called a decomposition tree, which is this one. It's very cool. So basically, I can drill down my data step by step. So I can see different years. Then for every year, I can see the country, every country, and this is completely dynamic. Okay? Very easy to create. It actually looks very nice, but it's not really very difficult to create. So you can go back and have a look at the website and see the different types of visualizations that have been created. Right? There's something on Tableau also, even though I don't work on Tableau a lot. Most of my work happens on Power BI. Great. So hope that answers the question. Yeah. I wanted to show you something on Tableau as well. Very simple. We'll keep our order date. We'll keep our sales amount. And if we now put, let's say, a line chart, let me change this to a month. So very simple. You get a month-wise movement. In forecasting, you can just go to analytics, click on forecast, and then drag forecast inside this pane, and it will automatically create a forecast for you. Why did I not show this on Power BI? The reason is that Power BI only has one forecasting, which is exponential smoothing. If you want to use additive, multiplicative models, handle seasonality factors, then you have to use Tableau. So you can simply right click. If you want to see the forecast explanation, you can say describe forecast, and it will show you all your residuals and RMSE values and all of that, right? And if you want to change it, you can simply right click, go to forecast, and in options, you have many options available. You can look at the aggregation level. You can look at the forecast models here. And let's say select anything. We'll just use the custom model. That's okay. And basically, you get a forecast like this. If you want to see it for different markets, you can just select market and put it in rows, and you get a forecast for every market independently. See, Power BI and Tableau are very similar. Both of them have their advantages and disadvantages. Like in Power BI, the best part is that if you want to create something, you can use R. Like both R and Python is integrated within Power BI. If you notice, R and Python are a part of Power BI, which is cool, right? So I can actually use, let's say, an ARIMA model. So I can just go to get more visuals. I can type forecasting. Okay, so I can just say forecasting. And then you have these ARIMA models available. So I can just select this. And if you notice, it is using your R dependency. So it's going to use Proto and Zoo. And all of these are auto-installed, which is great. So you don't have to bother with any coding and all. This is zero coding, right? I mean, of course, if you code, it will be better, but you don't have to. So I just click on add. And once this gets added, I can select this. We'll, of course, have to enable the script visuals. And then I can just select my date and my sales value. This will actually take some time because R and Python is very slow on Power BI. And this is a substantially large data set. So maybe I'll just, anyway, I'm not getting into the details. Like you notice here, you have everything available. You can choose length, confidence level. You can choose seasonality factor. You can choose, I don't know if you guys have worked on ARIMA, but you have PDQ values, which is the auto-regressive values and all. So you can customize all of these things, the maximal and the minimal values. And this is great. Basically, without any programming, you can still customize all of these. And the best part is that all of these are interacted with other Power BI visuals, which is amazing, right? So that's the beauty of working on Power BI. It's very tightly integrated. There are limitations. One big limitation is that in Power BI, if you work with R and Python, you're limited to 150,000 rows. That means that if your data set is more than 1.5 lakh rows, it will not work. It will only look at the top 1.5 lakh rows. Why is that the case? Nobody knows, but it is what it is. So you should be aware of that, right? And like I said, in Tableau, like one more thing I wanted you guys to work on was, the customer clusters. Even though I know I did not ask that question, but I wanted you guys to use it at some point. This will just be the last example I take. Like if I keep my customer name and my sales value, I could have also kept my profit value and made it into a scatter plot, right? Like this. And if you just, and now how do you see clusters? So we are using KNN algorithm, K nearest neighbor. We can just go to analytics, select cluster, put it inside. I'll put 5 clusters here. And basically, it will give me a very interesting insight. Like, sorry. Usually, from a business perspective, what is a high-level overview? You'll say that these guys are the most important to the business, correct? Because these are high on profit and high on sales. But this is actually incorrect. Watch this carefully. If you look at this one, this is, just remember this is the green one, which is cluster number 5, right? And this blue one is cluster number 1. What I'm going to do is I'll make another sheet and I'll put my clusters and my profit amount. And I want you to see this. Let me also sort my data. Do you see where the maximum profit is coming from? Cluster 1. And the least is coming from cluster 3. Just compare it. If you notice, your cluster 3 here, which is your red, is this, which is very bad, right? But despite the fact that they are higher on sales compared to the orange guys, which is cluster 2, their contribution to the business overall is actually negative. And that is something you have to be careful about, right? Only 65,000, which is the best, 1 and 4, which is 1 obviously is this, and then 4 is this, not these guys. And there's a very simple reason, because it's also a question of the number of customers who are there, despite the fact that they're very high. These are outliers, correct? Overall, that cluster is not the one that you should be focusing on, because from a business top line perspective, they're not really contributing very highly to your profit. Aditya, KNN refers to KNN, which is the most simple classification algorithm that you use in Python are called the KNN method, right? So KNN basically says that it will look at different points in your scatter plot and it will create homogeneous clusters. So all these blue boxes that you see are similar to each other. If you want to understand KNN, you can just type KNN applet, and then you have these interactive applets available. Like this one is available on Stanford, and you can actually interact with it, and you can see how clusters are formed like this. Right? This is a very nice way to learn. Rather than reading it from a book, this is the best way to learn how clusters work. Right? Like anything you want to learn, like if you want to learn linear regression, just type linear regression interactive applet, and just go to any website. And as you can see, you can create a, let me open a different one. Okay, I don't remember which one I opened, but anyway, you guys can have a look at it. So you can actually create these interactive applets by putting your own data sets and all these things. Let me see if there are any default data sets available. Anyway, you guys can search for this on your own. Just the word here is applet. So whatever you're searching for, just put applet after it. Right? Let me give it one last try if I find something. Even though I don't think this one is interactive. Anyway, it doesn't matter, right? There are different types of models. So like you have support vector machines, right? Then you have decision tree, you have random forest. I'll not get into all this. Remember, machine learning, for all of you who have not sort of learned ML so far, machine learning is just regression and classification. That's it. It's just done at a larger scale. That's all. So if you want to learn machine learning, the first step is to learn linear regression and multiple regression. What is y equal to mx plus p? What is residual? What is least square method, right? Unless you learn these things, you will never be able to learn machine learning properly. Okay? Great. All right, good. I think we've done a few things. I have shown you a little bit of Power Pivot, some bit of Excel, how to create DAX measures. That's very important. My feedback on you guys is that, of course, you know, some of you guys have done wonderful work, and I hope you all had fun doing it. And, you know, initially when I share problems like this, everybody says, Havish, sir, these are such simple questions. You know, why don't you give us complicated questions? But let me tell you, business is not about complicated questions. Business is about very simple questions, right? Who are the best customers? What to divest? What to launch? When to launch? What is the trend line? What is the forecast? What you study in case studies and all, to be honest, 90% of the time is not used. Like I work with Vedanta, I work with Metropolis, I work with Allianz. These things have never worked with anything more than mean and sum